So the Robbie Lawler versus Colby Covington fight. A disappointment for all the Robbie Lawler fans and all the Colby Covington haters, but overall a pretty interesting fight to watch, especially for the general MMA fan. What's up, fight fans? I'm Marisol Mora, and I'm here to talk about my take on the Robbie Lawler versus Colby Covington fight. Like I just said, it was a pretty interesting fight to watch in general. I did enjoy it, but I was somewhat like the Colby Covington hater / Robbie Lawler fan, a bit disappointed in Robbie Lawler's performance. I was surprised that he was able to be taken down quite easily and that he just kept ending up in the same position by the cage, back to the cage, side to the cage, and just with practically Colby Covington taking his back, trying to get the rear naked choke, pretty much having the rear naked choke, but not actually going for it, which was interesting to take note of because he could have had it, but he didn't actually go for it, which was interesting to know. I'll get back to that in a little bit. But again, Robbie Lawler found himself in that position repeatedly. And what was astounding was that he wasn't even covering his neck. Time and time again, he just had both of his hands on the floor, by the cage, trying to swat Colby Covington's arm away, but not actually protecting his neck like you would see anybody doing in a fundamental Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. You protect your neck at all times. And Robbie Lawler wasn't doing it, which then takes me back to Colby Covington not actually finishing the fight when he could have done it in the very first round. So in the very first round, we had that exact same position happen maybe 2-3 times, 2-3 key moments in that first round where Robbie Lawler was in that position, back almost taken. We had Colby Covington kind of have partial way. He kind of had it partially done. The rear naked choke, all he needed was to lock in that back arm to really get the choke in, but he did not do it. And he does have a wrestling background, so I mean, maybe jiu-jitsu is not his thing, but I feel like the rear naked choke is a fundamental thing, especially if you're going to be doing MMA. And so many people have won via that choke. I mean, this year alone, but just throughout time in martial arts, in the UFC, that has just been a fundamental choke and a very powerful one to utilize in this type of situation. So for him to not do it, to not remember to recall it in that time, doesn't seem plausible to me. So that leads me to believe that Colby Covington was just toying with Robbie Lawler, which again, if you're a Robbie Lawler fan, is really disheartening to think about, that we got to a point in the fight and very early on where Colby Covington didn't have that respect or didn't have that fear of Robbie Lawler's skill and power, where he was just like, I'm gonna toy with him and I'm gonna be in a position to almost finish him, but I'm 100% sure that he's not actually going to hurt me, so I'm just going to mess with his head here instead. So I feel like that happened very early on in the fight, and it showed in that position, because I think it would have been very easy to finish that fight, and it could have been over in the first round. However, we see the same thing play out by about the third round, definitely by the fourth, where Colby Covington was not even trying to take down Robbie Lawler anymore. In the beginning, I could definitely see why that would be the tactic. You want to be a bit wary about Robbie Lawler's power. You want to mitigate that, completely nullify it by taking him down to the ground and just having a wrestling match, which Colby Covington was doing for the first 2 rounds. He did, I believe the number was 20 takedown attempts, and 10 of them were successful in 5 rounds. That is astounding. The cardio that Colby Covington has is amazing. Who does that? Who does 20 takedown attempts with 10 successful ones? And I believe he did about 500 strikes? Insane. So anyway, back to the point that I was talking about. So he was just not having that respect anymore for Robbie Lawler in that regard. No more respect for his power, no more fear for his skills that he may have, or any fear that he might take over the fight and begin to dominate. So instead of taking him down by the 3rd round, by the 4th round, Colby Covington was pretty much keeping it a boxing match, throwing in a couple of kicks now and then. But pretty much we did see a boxing match, especially for the 4th and 5th rounds, which again, Robbie Lawler was able to shine a little bit more during those circumstances, was able to get a little bit more punches in, and he was able to really maneuver and show his defense skills very well. But in the fight game, the defense skills aren't always going to be what gets you the fight. Definitely by the 4th round, we were in a situation where Robbie Lawler definitely needed to get that finish in order to win the fight. But given how he had been fighting, by the third round, I was just like, okay, Covington got this. Like, unless we see like a Hail Mary knockout by Robbie Lawler, like, it's not going to go in his favor. So that's pretty much what happened. I was somewhat disappointed, but also really astounded and just impressed by the way that Colby Covington did fight. And even before this fight, I was pretty much in agreement that he did at least deserve a title fight against Kumaru Usman. So as they've been saying in the post-fight interviews and that have happened since the event earlier today, that they're thinking about having that fight happen in November in the Madison Square Garden card. So we might be seeing that soon. I think that'll be very interesting. As we saw in his fight with Tyron Woodley, Kumaru Usman is a phenomenal wrestler, able to essentially mitigate all of the power that Tyron Woodley has by taking him down to the ground. Granted, that was definitely not one of Tyron Woodley's best nights. He even admitted that at the end of the fight in his Octagon interview. It just wasn't a good night for him. But that's not to take away from Kumaru Usman's wrestling skills whatsoever. So I think that given the way that we saw Colby Covington out-wrestle and to use that in order to effectively mitigate all of Robbie Lawler's skills and power, you pair that with Kumaru Usman, we're going to see an insane wrestling match essentially, and I'm very excited for that. I think that'll be phenomenal to see. I'm a little sad that we have to wait all the way until November to watch it, but given the way time goes, November's going to be here sooner than we can even realize. So that's something that I am excited to see. As for what else is happening in that weight class, or at least for Robbie Lawler, at this point, what is there left for him to do in his career? That's something that I think is something to call into question. I believe he's 37. I mean, correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong, but he's definitely like mid 30s at this point, if not late 30s. He's had a phenomenal career. He's been champion before in the UFC and in a previous organization. So he's had a phenomenal career. People still love him. During that fight, you could hear the crowd chanting for Robbie Lawler. So the fans still love him. So he might be able to use that clout to continue on fighting and still be a draw for the sport. But at this point, once you start to get up there, you have to think about these things. Is it worth maybe potential more brain damage? Again, how about like 500 strikes by Colby Covington in this one fight? So it's something to think about. Perhaps let me know in the comments down below what you think about Robbie Lawler's career. Is it time for him to say goodbye and to move on and do something else with his life at this point and let the fight game go? Let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. What did you think about this fight? Were you as impressed with Colby Covington's style and fighting? And are you excited also for the fight with Kumaru Usman for that title? And if you are, who are you rooting for in that fight? I'm just going to be interested to see how it goes down. And I'm also interested to see how the trash talking for that fight is going to go. Colby Covington has created this really polarizing persona, and it is something that Kumaru Usman has commented on before, saying that he is the real, like, all-American person, a true American, especially in comparison to Colby Covington. So anyway, more on that later once that fight is fully solidified, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Overall, I think this was a phenomenal fight, a really interesting fight to watch and to see. But yeah, it was all good fun, and I cannot wait to see the rest of the cards for this month. We have amazing fights coming on, so stay tuned to my channel where I'm going to be doing some more breakdowns and also some predictions on my Instagram as well. So make sure to follow all those links down below and subscribe to this channel. And of course, don't forget to like and to share this video with a friend, family member, and just people you love. See you in the next one.